Apparently I do car shows now. I thought we'd only be doing track days this year, but now we're doing frickin' car shows. And in my opinion, this thing ain't show worthy right now. There's always the debate of, can show cars be track cars? Can track cars be show cars? And realistically, the only right answer there is track cars can be show cars and track cars can be track cars. Show cars can't be track cars, but show cars can be show cars. You guys see what I'm saying? My point is, this thing has bumps and this thing has bruises because it's a track car. But because it's a track car, that means she goes fast. And we got a lot of parts that make it go fast, which car guys want to see at car shows. So we're gonna take it to a car show. That being said, this video is about the Honda, so I want to make this quick. The only things that I'm gonna do to this car to prep for a show is I gotta pull all the interior trim panels that are wrapped on it off and rewrap them. I gotta take the wheels off and clean the barrels and just give everything a deep clean on this car. I gotta scrape the red stuff off my center caps, and then she's good to go to the show, which I know is a very minor list of things to do, but that's because you guys deserve an update on the Honda, and we'll get there. So I know that was a long intro, but what is going on, you guys? And welcome back to the channel. In our last video, you guys absolutely freaking killed it, dude. We went to the track. SomethingCool Co. had its first ever company event, which if you guys are new to the channel and you do not know, SomethingCool Co. is my company. Kind of ironic, I'm not wearing any of my own merchandise right now, except for my shop hat, because this thing is filthy. But we had our first track day as a company, and you guys absolutely killed it. We sold like half of absolutely all the stock that we had. Plus there was some of you guys that hopped on the online store after the event and ordered some items as well. So if you guys ordered anything, take some pictures with it, tag us in your photos on Instagram or Facebook. I really appreciate your guys' support. Anyways, moving on to actually car related stuff. Our last video was at a track event / show. Now, last week, I took a week off YouTube just because I probably got an hour and a half to 3 hours of sleep every single night prepping for that event, because I do a lot of this stuff on my own. I don't really have much help when it comes to the events. My girlfriend Sierra, my brother Brandon, my buddy Ethan, and his cousin James helped out immensely. So thank you guys so much for that if you're seeing this video. But outside of that, I do everything myself, and it takes a lot of time, and unfortunately there's only 24 hours in a day, so I was running on like no sleep to get everything done. So I took a week off to kind of have fun, reset, and just get back into the swing of life on a somewhat proper sleep schedule. But now we are back. And the reason I'm saying this is this weekend, we got Driven Edmonton. If you guys did not know, yes, I am from Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. So we will be at Driven Show in Edmonton. SomethingCool Co. is going to have a booth there. We're gonna have all the merchandise that we had at the Tuner Bash event. So if you guys missed out, don't worry. We'll see you at West Edmonton Mall. I announced it all over my Instagram stories on the SomethingCool account. My personal is Daniel Kellert Instagram, and lots of other people shared it as well. So if you aren't following the Instagrams, you probably missed out on the event. Then right after the event, we got hotels booked, and we are going to stay in Airdrie, which is close to our next stop at Tuner Bash Calgary, which is a track event. It is 1/8 mile racing, so I'm not gonna race the Honda in that event because it's just gonna spin like crazy and it's not gonna be worth it unless I launch in second gear, and I'm gonna risk snapping axles. Trust me, I read your guys' comments last video. A lot of them were saying clutch master cylinder, launch the car in second. There was a whole bunch of suggestions, and we're gonna get there. But for now, we need to prep for these shows this weekend, because once we get to Airdrie, we got Tuner Bash Calgary, 10 a.m. the next morning, which SomethingCool is also going to have a booth at. So if you guys are from Calgary and you missed the Tuner Bash Edmonton event or the Driven Edmonton event, don't worry, we'll see you guys in Airdrie at the Airdrie Air Park. This event's gonna be super cool. It's actually on an airstrip. I think it's more drop arm style, 1/8 mile racing. So we're gonna be taking the Subaru out. And this thing runs a pretty gnarly 1/8 mile just because it is all-wheel drive. So maybe we can win some awards. I don't know. Either way, I'm talking too much already. But now you guys know the whole plan here. So let's show you guys the first thing that needs to get done on the interior of the Subaru, because it ain't pretty. The interior of this car has a whole bunch of carbon fiber wrapped trim pieces, and as you guys can see, it is all bubbled and just looks terrible. We also have all the vents are painted black, but if you take a look right here, you can see in the corner corners of these vents, the paint is like peeling and just looks pretty crappy, in my opinion. Along with around the whole head unit and everything like that, like it's just peeling. And this trim has seen probably 10 plus years with this wrap on it. So just for the sake of not making this video insanely long, because I've already talked too much, let's jump into a good old time lapse of me taking this thing apart and rewrapping all the trim components, and I'll get you guys a good before and after look. It is a couple days later now, and we finally got all this knocked out. Colton helped me prep and sand a whole bunch of these frickin' panels because the paint that was on there was just so terrible. It was peeling and flaking off like crazy. We had to do 150 grit, 400 grit, 800 grit, 1000 grit, and then 2000 grit on like most of the panels. So that was a lot of late nights, and this is probably day 4 now of doing this, but it turned out super, super good. For my first time wrapping stuff, I'm happy with it. I don't know how long it's gonna last, but for now, it looks pretty good. So now that all of these panels are completely finished up, the next step obviously is to get them reinstalled in the car. So just for the sake of this video, because we wanna talk about the Honda, and since it is now Friday, which means it's show day tomorrow on Saturday at Driven Show in Edmonton, I'm gonna get all of these panels slapped in off camera. I'm gonna do all the prep for the cars off camera, and I'm gonna give you guys an update on the Honda and show you guys the Subaru once it's all put back together and nice and clean. Look at how frickin' shiny this all looks, boys. Oh my God. That sucked so bad to do, but I am so happy that we did it. Look at the access port. It matches everything perfectly. The access port might be a little bit, like a slight shade lighter, but that's pretty frickin' close. This looks unreal. I am so hyped with how this came out. And I just realized I forgot to wrap 2 pieces, and they're on the steering wheel. But we're gonna have to do that another day because we are out of time to work on this car. I might have a little bit extra left over that I can use for this, but if you guys look at just like the shininess of the old stuff versus the shininess of this new stuff, it is night and day difference. You can even tell just from this photo right here, how much shinier everything else is versus on the steering wheel. All I have left for carbon fiber wrap is this little piece that I saved right here, which should be enough to do both of those, but it's already peeled. And then I got this little piece right here. Other than that, we use the entire roll. So since we're so tight on time, I'm gonna get everything cleaned up on the cars off camera. Let's get the Honda pulled into the shop, and we got to check our front fender liners because they are annihilated from doing the burnout. Clean all the burnt rubber out of there, and we gotta paint the exhaust cutout, and I gotta show you guys what we did with our boost controller setup to get it working and explain it a little bit. So let's get a cold start for the boys on the Subaru. I will put a link on the top of the screen to the cold start for the boys flags because they're freaking sick. And I still haven't had time to put mine up. It's gonna go here or over there or over there. I don't know yet. Let's just get a cold start for the boys. Damn, Damn, that sounds good. And now, let's get our next cold start for the boys. That was a rough cold start for the boys. This battery is smoked. Now our first little mod or repair, I guess you could say, we need to do to the Honda is the exhaust cutout. I bet you we're gonna go down and look at this cutout and there's gonna be rust on it. Can almost guarantee it because I MIG welded it. And when you MIG weld stainless steel, it tends to rust pretty fast. Not saying I'm some professional fabricator or something, but that's just something I've learned through experience. So let's see if my suspicion is true. Not quite yet, but it's starting. So if you guys take a peek at this exhaust here, you can see all the stainless stuff, even the Amazon stuff, is holding up good. I've driven this through the rain so much and I don't really see much rust. The only rusty pieces are right where we welded it with the MIG welder. You can see it's starting on both sides there, and that's just gonna look absolutely destroyed in like another month. So before that happens, we're gonna get some high temp Cerakote paint on this thing to prevent it from rusting. So I'm gonna get this V-band taken off here, this V-band taken off here. We're gonna pull the entire electronic cutout out of the car. And then this one right here, I am not really wanting to remove the whole downpipe right now. So I'm just gonna scuff it up in here and we're gonna spray out the paint with the downpipe on the car because that one is pretty easy to get to from all areas, even from the top. And all we gotta do to remove the cutout for electrical wiring is our little plug on the P-clip there. We just gotta take the electrical tape off, unplug it, and then we can drop this thing right out. So I'll give you guys a good little before shot so you know what it looked like, and then you can see what it looks like when we're done. And just like that, boys, no more rust on the exhaust cutout. That looks so good. This is just VHT high temp paint. It always comes up like a matte black finish, but I got this stuff on my Subaru and it works pretty good. It really, really bakes onto the pipes once you actually run the car and the exhaust gets hot. We got everything set now. All our V-bands are tight. Everything is 100% finalized, and I'm happy with how it came out. While it was out, I even went ahead and cleaned out the exhaust cutout because a lot of carbon gets built up in there. That should be like a regular service interval thing, in my opinion, if you're running one of these. So next thing we gotta do to the good old Honda before we go to the show tomorrow is clean out these fender liners because I did a freaking huge burnout. We gotta whip the wheels off and pressure wash them out, wipe them down, get them back in the car. Then we gotta wash the whole car again. But it might rain overnight tonight and I don't have space for the Civic in the garage because Colton Zevo is in here. So I might wash it in the morning before the show. I think that might be the move. But we gotta get the wheels cleaned up tonight while they're off the car, and it's easy. We can clean the inner barrels and everything. And then I can explain to you guys why YouTube comments saved my 8th gen Civic. We'll have a little TED talk at the end here. All you 8th gen owners definitely don't want to click off the video. This is very useful information. I wish I would have known this before I got my car tuned. Just like that, we're still not ready for show day. The Honda's filthy, but the Subaru's clean. We had all the merch packed up. We had everything packed up to drive down to Calgary for Tuner Bash right after driven. I am see, I can't even talk. I am so sleep deprived, it is insane. But we're doing it, and I'm excited. Now, for the point of this video, which is what the title is. Why YouTube comments saved my turbo Honda. Because they did. This is why I love each and every one of you guys that comments on the videos. Whether you guys give advice, whether you give a hate comment about something that I'm doing, it's constructive criticism. I love it. So keep commenting, boys. The last video that you guys saw of the actual build series on this Honda was the dyno video. And on the dyno, if you guys watched the video, you would know we had nothing but problems. We could not get the frickin' Honda 4-port boost controller to work. Still nothing? What the fuck? We got 12-volt feed on the one wire, constant, and then the other wire should be going to that pin on the ECU. So we did all our tests, we tested all the wiring, made sure it all had good continuity, we made sure we were on the right pin that Honda wanted us to be on, which I believe was pin B2, if I'm not mistaken. They want you to put the boost control output on B2, so connector B, pin 2, which is the EGR output. And I wired it from a 12-volt source straight to the boost controller, and I ran the ground wire to pin B2 on the ECU because I just assumed, because most automotive ECUs are like this, that it would have an NPN transistor in it. And an NPN transistor is a transistor that is ground side controlled. So basically, the transistor in the ECU has a little switch, and that switch opens and closes, just like this. And what that's called is duty cycling. So that transistor duty cycles the ground to vary how much that boost controller opens or closes to allow more air or less air to the diaphragm of the wastegate to allow it to open or close more, to allow more or less boost. And no matter what we did, we could not get that boost controller working. So anyways, fast forward to the end here. We did all our tests, couldn't figure it out. We assumed it had to be an ECU issue. If you guys watched the video, you would know what tests we did. So I'm not gonna go through and explain that. We sent the ECU to a guy that's really good with computers. He opened it up, took a look inside, tested all the transistors. He said they all checked out, but the transistor that drives that pin on the ECU is a bit of a weaker transistor. Now, I had no idea about this whatsoever until I read the YouTube comments. And you guys commented on my video saying that it is a weaker transistor and it will not run 4 ports. But then I got some people messaging me, telling me that they are running 4 ports on that pin. So now I'm confused. So I started asking myself, is it the 4-port that's the problem? Do I need a 3-port boost controller? So one of my subscribers lives out in Vegreville. His name is Josh. I just want to say thank you so much, Josh, in advance. You're the only reason that I made it to the track for our last track day video with the Honda. Josh drove an hour and a half and met me and sold me his Speed Factory Racing 3-port boost controller. I came home, got it slapped in the car. After I drove to the other side of the city, picked up my ECU from the guy that had the ECU, got it back in the car, got the 3-port installed, still didn't work. So now I'm thinking, what the hell is going on here? And remember when I said that it is an NPN transistor? I was wrong. Every single other output on the factory 8th gen Honda Civic ECU is an NPN transistor, which means it controls the ground side of the circuit. When I installed this 3-port and it didn't work, I finally hit rock bottom. I was like, okay, clearly this isn't an ECU issue. It wasn't the 3-port versus 4-port running at different frequencies so the ECU can't control it. Something is going on here that I'm not catching. That pin on connector B, pin 2, is run by a PNP transistor, which you guys might thinking that's freaking robot language, but that basically means that it controls the positive side of the circuit. So what I did, actually, I'll show you what I did. We ran a wire straight from pin B2 on the ECU directly to our boost controller. Then the other wire on the boost controller, we ran straight to the negative post on our battery. That way the ECU is supplying power from the PNP transistor, and then we are completing that circuit with a ground. And I just went straight to the battery for now. I haven't had time to actually clean this up and build a harness yet, but guess what? It freaking works. The boost controller works perfectly fine. And guess what? I put the 4-port in there and it works perfectly fine. So if anybody is telling you guys that 8th gen Honda ECUs cannot run a 4-port boost controller, they're wrong. And just so you guys know, the only possible way to wire a boost controller on an 8th gen Honda Civic is with the wire going from the ECU to the boost controller and the other wire off the boost controller going to a ground, which is so freaking weird. I don't understand it. Every single other ECU in automotive applications has NPN transistors, and every other transistor in this ECU is an NPN transistor. The freaking injector transistor, that's NPN for sure. All the injectors got 12 volts on them. It controls the ground side for each individual injector. It makes no sense why. So that night, once it finally clicked and I realized it was a PNP transistor in there, I wired it up. We went out and street tuned the thing until like 3 in the morning, and then we were up at 7 or 6 a.m. to go to Tuner Bash, to the track, and this thing did the gnarliest burnout I've ever seen. This thing hauls dick, for lack of a better term. It's fast. And my butt dyno says this thing's making about 425 wheel. That's my guess. But just for you guys, because our dyno number said 386 Mustang dyno on basically wastegate pressure. Now that the boost controller is working, we're gonna slap this thing back on the dyno. I'm not gonna leave you guys hanging. We are gonna get final numbers for this budget build, CX Racing, eBay turbo kit. This car is such a freaking blast, man. It's crazy. So there was one specific comment that made me realize that it was a PNP transistor. And I'll read that comment to you and I'll put it on the screen right now. Like, there were so many comments on here. This one from Guess Who 6020. I also have a boosted FG2. These cars don't like 4-port EBCs. ECU doesn't send enough power. Use a 3-port and you'll have no issues. Wrong. I'm not gonna go through and read all these. If you guys wanna see the comments, go to the Civic dyno video. I'll put a link on the top of the screen to it. This is the comment here that made me start thinking. Carlos Velez 3343. Yeah, you gotta add a fuse to your boost controller. He meant you. I'm just joking around. And I thought to myself, why would you add a fuse for the boost controller? That makes no sense. Like, I had it wired to my purge valve, which already has a fuse running the purge valve connector. So I'm like, this makes no sense. So I responded, it is fused. I'm using the factory purge valve 12-volt feed. Factory purge valve wiring has an inline fuse in the fuse box, which I just said. One wire should be connected to the ECU pin B2. For S2000s, it's B16, using a 10 amp fuse. In my head, I'm thinking, why would you put a 10 amp fuse in line with the ECU? That makes no sense. So I said, you don't need a 10 amp fuse on a pulse width modulated ground side control wire. The fuse stays on the positive side of the circuit in case there's a short to ground prior to the sensor or load. Not in this case, not with a PNP transistor. Then he said, is the B2 for a purge valve? I thought B2 is an empty spot. I told him, I explained this in the video. The purge valve ground side control wire pin is B3. I moved B3 and moved it to the empty slot, which is B2, which is the EGR output used for boost control. The ECU should be duty cycling that ground, and it's not. This comment, he did not directly say, it's a PNP transistor, you need to wire power to it and then a ground. But that comment alone made me think, what if? What if I ran the wire from the ECU to the solenoid and then grounded the other side? What if it's a PNP transistor and I'm just going crazy here? And then guess what? You already know. You already know the story. But it's frickin' late now, dude. 1:57 in the morning to be exact. And we gotta be at Driven Edmonton at 8 a.m. We gotta roll in, so we gotta leave here at 7. And I still haven't washed the Honda, so we gotta do that. The Subaru's clean, but the Honda's not. So let me show you guys real quick, just to end this video off, how I plumbed the 3-port boost controller. Actually, you know what? I'll show you, but I'm just gonna throw a photo up on the screen. This photo is straight off of the Speed Factory Racing website. The only thing I really had to modify outside of the other boost controller I was running is I put a 3T fitting in there. Now that we only have a 3-port, there's only 2 ports that you have access to and 1 vent to atmosphere. On the 4-port boost controller, there is 3 ports and then 1 to vent to atmosphere. So on a 4-port, you'd have 1 port going to the bottom of the gate, 1 port going to the top of the gate, and then 1 port going to your positive pressure source, which would be the turbo. In this case, we only got 2 ports. So we got 1 port going to the bottom of the gate, and the other port goes to the top of the gate, but also tees off and goes to the turbo, which you guys can see in this photo that is on the screen right now. That's exactly how Speed Factory Racing tells you to do it, and that is how we plumbed it in this one. And this car runs frickin' phenomenal right now. A little bit of blue smoke out the tailpipe. I think that might have a little bit to do with this CX Racing turbo or our whole oil drain line situation. It might not be draining fast enough, but judging by the burnout we did at the last track event, it went pretty frickin' well. So now before we leave, I'm just gonna hop out and show you guys what we got going on. You can see in the back of the Subaru, we got boxes and boxes of merchandise going on. We got this thing all cleaned up, engine bays all clean, and we got the truck box absolutely loaded with stuff, including the back seat. So that is gonna be it for this video. I will catch you guys in the next video. We're gonna be at Driven Edmonton and then Tuner Bash Calgary the next day. I'm probably only gonna make 1 video out of it. Might make 2, I don't know. I need to go get some sleep. If you guys bought anything for the merch drop, thank you so much for the support. I don't expect you guys to buy merch. If you guys watch the videos and you like and comment and show support for the channel, and that way it's free, I appreciate you. So thanks for listening to my TED Talk for the last 15 minutes because I was so frustrated when this all happened. And now it's come full circle and the car runs awesome. So peace out, you guys. Thank you so much for watching. I will catch you guys in the next one. Sorry for talking so much.